Welcome to Kev Talks, Real World Global Logistics. I'm Kevin Parkerson.
And I'm Kevin Higgins. Together we bring you over 60 years in combined experience in global logistics.
In each episode, we'll dive into the latest industry trends, share practical tips, celebrate wins, and share stories from the logistics front lines, all while helping businesses optimize their logistics operations. Welcome to another episode of Kev Talks, Real World Global Logistics. Today we have the distinct honor of hosting a true pioneer in internet communications, Jeff Pulver. Widely recognized as a tech industry icon and futurist, Jeff's innovative work in voice-over internet protocol has fundamentally transformed the way the world communicates. In 1995, Jeff founded Pulver.com, a company that played a pivotal role in the widespread adoption of voice-over internet protocol technology. His visionary efforts continued with the co-founding of Vonage in 2001, a company that became synonymous with internet-based technology services. Beyond these ventures, Jeff has been instrumental in launching several other companies, including Vivix and Zula, and has invested in over 400 startups, showcasing his commitment to fostering innovation in the tech industry.
Jeff's influence extends beyond entrepreneurship. He has been a staunch advocate for internet freedom and has actively participated in shaping regulatory policies to support technological advancement. His efforts led to a landmark decision by the Federal Communications Commission in 2004, classifying VOIP or VoIP as an internet application, thereby paving the way for the development of modern video and voice internet communications. Currently, Jeff serves as a Chief Evangelist Officer of the VCon Foundation, an organization he founded to further explore and promote advancements in virtual communication. He also curates and hosts VON, Evolution, AI/Com, and VCon events across North America and Europe, continuing his mission to connect and inspire innovators worldwide.
Beyond his professional endeavors, Jeff is an avid astrophotographer and has rekindled his early passion for amateur radio, reflecting his lifelong dedication to expanding the boundaries of communication. Join us as we delve into a conversation with Jeff, exploring his remarkable journey, the evolution of global communication, and the future of technology in our interconnected world.
Wow, welcome, Jeff.
Wow.
Wow.
Thanks for having me.
Is that you? Is that really you?
Yeah, a part of the work that I did do back in the Pulver order enables services like what we're using right now to record this podcast available and free to use. At least the idea anyway was to enable voice and video communications that originate on the internet not to be regulated like the old-fashioned way as telecom. And that's been successful. I mean, voice over IP was happening prior to 2004, but once the Pulver order came out, the hyperscalers, all the people doing data centers and stuff, the global traffic went through the roof, and life as we know it changed. And if you think about the pandemic, of everyone that worked from home, studied from home, stayed at home,
yeah,
if they didn't have the opportunity to connect the way they did, it would have been a lot different. So I'm very proud of the Pulver order. I mean, back in 2003 when I petitioned for it, I did not anticipate a pandemic that people would be homebound. I was just looking to. You're welcome. I was thinking more of like a world where I wanted entrepreneurs to have a chance to develop in a greenfield opportunity called broadband. And I was afraid that the incumbent carriers of the day would lock that down and lock out the innovators. And so it's always a balancing act between innovation, opportunity, and technology. And where are we? And, one of the reasons I'm coming to Bentonville, frankly, is because I've been blessed with the opportunity to host conferences for almost 30 years where I bring together entrepreneurs who have breakthrough ideas, people who want to invest, sometimes companies that are created using these ideas. And here I am coming to Bentonville, Arkansas. Why? Because Von Evolution is the evolution of so Von was a trade show and conference I did for 11 years, which helped launch the VoIP industry. Vonage, no coincidence, was born at Von. So Von, I coined the phrase stand for voice and video on the net back in 95. And and Vonage was the first successful commercial service provider. And Von Evolution, the intention of that is not to be a trade show, not even to be a conference, but be a place, a salon gathering where people have a chance to have meaningful conversations about topics of the day. And I launched this in New York in 2023, looking at the intersection of AI and telecom and blockchain and supply chain and many other things. And I'm coming to Bentonville because, I understand Walmart and logistics, and for that matter, JP Hunt, Tyson's Foods, and so many others. You're in that area, Northwest Arkansas, and it's a booming area. And
Yeah.
I've witnessed during my life, I've seen a lot of gentrification in certain cities. I've seen some cities not do so well. But when I came to Bentonville for the first time last September, wow, I felt like I was looking at CGI from a movie. I was in Rogers. I saw, I think, 5 blocks being built at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, this is explosive growth. And if you're in the communications industry, you want to be there. Now, I didn't realize at the time that Walmart may have incentivize some of their suppliers to show up and open up offices there. But something else is going on. And I have friends that are avid mountain bikers. When I told them Bentonville, Arkansas was a mountain biking capital of the world, they didn't believe me. Look it up. And so to be in a place where you have innovators, you have people that are driving change, with the opportunity to bring together my friends in the communications industry, my friends who are in doing AI, and frankly, they're doing supply chain stuff. Not necessarily, some are in doing business with some of the folks we're in Bentonville, but many are not. And to have these conversations where we look at the nexus of what we can do together, like how do we take one technology, apply it to another, that to me is fun. I mean, I enjoy curating conversations. It's one of the things I love to do. Taking photographs of the night sky, I might love more in some ways. I love the tranquility of being in a place with no light pollution and looking up and being reminded that we're just made of cosmic dust, and we can look through our camera lenses and see the galactic center of the Milky Way. That's magical to me. And at the same time, bringing people to have those explosive galaxy forming ideas together, that's fun too. And so I'm coming to Bentonville with the intention of maybe moving there. You never know. And I was really inspired by the energy there and the presence of so many great minds. And I've been there twice now. This will be my third trip coming, and I didn't realize that people from the U.S. consider themselves expats from the cities they moved from. And I discovered that in my own definition that that Northwest Arkansas has become what I call the Australia of America. That 80% of the people who work there during the work week were not necessarily born there,
Mm-hmm.
which is a super big sign of the demand for opportunity is there. And so to bring my friends to a place, and they are coming, to explore, to experience that energy and the opportunity to extend what they're doing and cross connect the dots, because that's what I've at the Vaughn conferences. What have I been doing is I took entrepreneurs, brought investors together, and help some companies get funded, help companies get acquired, help companies grow by putting us, because I treat all my speakers as rock stars. I want everyone to have the stage, to have a chance to speak their voice, to be heard. And for me, that's what I call fun.
Yeah.
Well,
Dude, I think that's awesome. I honestly can't, it's cool to have you on as a guest, because Kevin and I are both, I'm probably a little more nerdy than he is, but we're both complete nerds when it comes to like new and emerging technology. And seeing this happen in our lifetime, in our adulthood, if you will, where we went from, landlines to T1s, where you had to be connected to, then the internet and broadband, and the ability to actually communicate like this, right? Like we're having a conversation live today where we're voices and video, and it's absolutely phenomenal to me. And it changes entrepreneurs, because we can communicate, whether it's, any of the protocols, whether it's WhatsApp or FaceTime or Skype, which is now being sunset, and Teams and this Riverside. So I think it's like super cool to have have you on here, that, being a pioneer in the industry and changing the way that we actually work and communicate.
Yeah.
Well, and
I have so many things I want to ask you. I want to get right into it.
Yeah.
However, again, Kevin and I are both, based here in Northwest Arkansas. Everything that you just said, we love hearing that. We love the area. We love helping promote the area. And we will continue to do that on this podcast. And I want to talk a little bit more about the event that you do have on April 9th. But before we do, I just have to ask you, I want you to share a little bit about your career journey. How did you get started in this? What made you, when you were in junior high and high school, did you aspire for this type of career? But how did it get started, and what did you do?
We probably don't have enough time on this podcast to go into all the details, but I'll just say this. When I was 9 years old, an uncle of mine brought me to his office. He had a factory on Long Island, and he had heard that I was lonely. I didn't have too many friends in school. And after taking a tour of his office, he brought me to his office on the factory floor. It wasn't so big, but there was a desk. There was a couple of chairs in front of it, and he was sitting behind the desk, and there was a box on the desk. And I was just in that room, and he flipped a switch, and all of a sudden this box started to glow. And I got mesmerized, and I started hearing, and then I started hearing noises as he raised the volume up, and he started hearing voices. And then what I didn't understand was when my uncle hit a microphone, which I couldn't even see because the radio was so big, he started saying, CQ, CQ, this is K2QQ, I'm calling CQ. And he repeated that for about a minute. What my uncle was saying was seek you, seek the letter C, the letter Q, and he was seeking a contact. Well, you may not remember this, but back in 1996, one of the first internet applications for chat was called ICQ.
Mm-hmm.
But that was me when I was 9. And what happened afterwards, when my uncle let go of the microphone for an hour, my uncle was sitting there talking to people from all over the world, where he said his name was Fred. He was in Farmingdale, Long Island, and he gave a signal report. It didn't matter where in the world the person was from. They all spoke English. And I didn't realize my uncle was such a popular person because he's just one contact after the other after the other. And what I realized quickly was that my uncle had the cure for loneliness, that I simply just needed to take that box that he had in his office and put it in my bedroom. And I could have friends before I went to school, after I got home from school, and it wouldn't matter about what was happening in school. So when after he demoed this, I asked my uncle, "Can I take this home now?" He said, "No." I said, "Aren't I your favorite nephew?" He
Yeah.
said, "Well, no, you can't have it." I said, "Why?" Because he said, "You need to have a license." I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, you need to be licensed to use this." I said, "So I want to get a license." No. You don't have to study. I said, "What do you mean?" I was 9. Okay. So
Yeah.
he said, "You had a Morse code, college level physics, and the rules, and you had to study the rules and regulations to be an amateur radio operator." So I said, "Okay." So what I did learn between ages of 9 and 12 and a half is how to be persistent, because it took me I failed many times, but finally when I was 12 and a half, I got my license to communicate, and I never shut up. And
Wow.
I've been a ham operator since then. And the one thing that I learned about amateur radio that I loved was community, and doing what's called phone patches. So that if you're sitting and you're sitting in Northwest Arkansas, and you had relatives on Long Island, back when I was growing up, it was expensive to make long distance calls.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we used to make phone patches so that if you were, as long as you knew that everyone could hear what you were saying, and so it was not for commercial use, you'd be able to talk to friends and relatives. And if you're in certain countries around the world that the U.S. had certain type of relationships with, we could also phone patch you in. And so I love that. And then in 30 years ago, in February '95, I read on the internet that there was some software available that I could download, and I could talk to people all over the world. And in a world where no one was used to talking to strangers, that was the world I grew up in. And let's just say that I rediscovered my hobby of amateur radio. And about 6 months after using Internet Phone, which was this application, we called it iPhone. So in my mind, iPhone didn't come out in 2007; it came out in 1995,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
and it was the ability to talk on the internet. And I had this crazy idea: wouldn't it be cool if I could use a phone patch to connect people with their computers over the internet to each other? And that was called free. That became something called Free World Dial-Up. It was free. It connected the world and ran on dial-up internet and I launched that in October '95. And
Holy.
while I did that, I did have a day job. I was in IT at a broker's broker there was Cannon Fitzgerald Securities. Was where I was working, and so I had a day job. but my night job was much more fun.
Yeah.
And the people running the company got wind of that because they heard I was going to want to do a conference about my hobby in September of '96. So they fired me, or they didn't renew my contract in July of '96. It saved my life because unfortunately at Cantor they had a hard. I mean, I worked for the brother of Howard Lutnick, and he lost his brother in 9/11. I lost 700
Oh,
people. There were about 700 plus people died at Cantor, and I was in building one at the World Trade Center. And being in IT, I knew about 400 of them, at least
Wow.
by reference. And but I ended up, I was inspired when I left Cantor. I never went back to finance, even though I was an expert in fixed income mathematics. I focused on connecting the world and to explore my inner ham radio operatorness. And so it was me as a hobbyist that gave me a non-telco perspective on making stuff happen. And so it was easy for me to be disruptive because I had no table stakes. I launched free world dial-up without a business plan just to help connect the world. And then 6 months later, 300 phone companies petitioned the FCC in March of '96, asking for the sale and use of internet telephony software to be banned in America and the makers to be regulated as phone companies. And as a result of that, let's just say I created the Voice on the Net coalition that still exists today. I'm very happy to say that that petition never got acted upon. And then over the years, a year later, actually in April of '97, I launched the VON conference, which grew into becoming the trade show, the global trade show for voice over IP. And even though I wasn't qualified, you talk about qualifications. I'm just a guy. I studied accounting in college. I may have had 3 startups when I was in high school. I didn't even realize that until someone interviewed me about 20 years ago. I never thought about it. It was just natural.
yeah.
I was a DJ. I did computer programming. I had a software publishing company before I went to college, and then but I was doing this. But I started the conference business. I had attended many conferences by '96, but I never really ran one. And in '97, the nice thing about being an entrepreneur, as you know, is you get to set your own culture. And so I ended up starting this conference business that did really, really well. And I learned that my dad used to tell me that the best investment you can ever make is in other people, is to believe in them,
Mhm.
and that sometimes you believe in someone before they believe in themselves. And so I found a lot of dreamers, a lot of people that had these
Yeah.
ideas like, what if that? And I went with it. And we created wonderful content. Mark Cuban, who you now have heard of,
Mhm.
he came to my first conference and he pitched his idea for AudioNet. He had this
Really?
crazy idea that he was in Dallas, Texas, and he thought that people wanted to hear the high school sports from the cities and towns they grew up in. And so he came to my conference to pitch it. And so that's how I got to know Mark, because in April '97, he was at Vaughn at the very first one,
Oh, wow.
pitching audio, not knowing that, I don't know, 2.5 years later, it'd sell for $4.6 billion to Yahoo. But, when you're with people and you help facilitate their dreams, magic does happen. And I believe in manifestation of all these things. And I believe that anything is possible as long as you believe. And so, for me, it was just a natural thing. And Vonage was born out of Von and so many other things. And the whole idea of the Pulver order came because, in '96, when these companies came after us for being innovative, that's why I went to the same attorneys who did help me with the Von Coalition and said, hey, can we be proactive this time? I see something happening. I see broadband. Because I was in Europe and I saw people having a gigabyte of bandwidth to their home back in the early 2000s. And I was just afraid about the entrepreneurs being shut down and saying, gee,
Mm.
Yeah.
the operators will say, we want broadband for ourselves. That's when I asked, can we be proactive? So in February 2003, we filed this petition with the FCC and they put it out for public comment. And the law came out a year later, like, whoa, wow. And I have reinvested heavily in other entrepreneurs, giving people a chance. And I have invested in people's dreams. And sometimes the dreams don't come true, but other times they have. And just being in that creative space where you get it, right? I mean, because I realize that we're bounded by our own imagination. And as long as we don't say no to ourselves, anything and everything becomes possible. We have to believe in what we want to do. And if you could find opportunities to cross connect those dreams and create a matrix of opportunities, great things can and will happen. I was an early investor in Twitter. I was very early in social media. I was very early in many of these things. And the thing that I'm now focused on, this VCon Foundation, I'm the CEO of the VCon Foundation, but I should mention in this context, CEO means Chief Evangelist Officer.
Yeah.
It doesn't pay well, but I have a lot of fun talking about it. Now, imagine, and by the way, this is a file format. So while voice over IP was transformative for communications for the last 30 years, the one thing that we've been leaving on the cutting room floor for 30 years is the metadata. That is the context to the conversation. So what if I told you that now I'm focused on what happens when you hang up the phone, when the conversation ends, and being able to take all those conversations and look for insights and seamlessly add and seamlessly connect the dots so that, if you have email that's 5 years old, 10 years old, 15 years old or more, you're probably working with an asset that's non-performing because you're forced to, by the nature of email, to have structured queries into it. If you're searching on a keyword, but let's face it, there's some emails we wish we really forgot. Let's assume you always will forget those. But what if I can give you total recall for all the other emails you ever had? You now can. If we simply saved those emails in a VCon format, you now could have total recall for all that. So now all
I
your
don't want to remember some of the emails that I have
maybe forget
actually.
for some of your old emails, forget about those.
Okay.
But imagine you can get a 360 perspective by combining all the voice conversations you're having, the emails you're having with that person, and any text messages and any other attachments or context. That's where I look at the future of what happens when the conversation ends and what goes on. Because what's happened is that in November 22, when OpenAI launched ChatGPT, like it or not, every business around the world changed.
Mm-hmm.
And some are slow to pick it up, others are quicker to adopt, but it just changed the way we do business. And so what the cool part is that a VCon is a file format. It's like a V card, but it's a structured format for conversations. And if we were to take a transcript that you have from this podcast and create a VCon from the transcript, you'd be able to copy paste that VCon into ChatGPT or Claude or any LLM you like, and say, okay, tell me what Jeff Pulver said. Now tell me what he meant. And by the way, what should have Jeff really covered given the opportunity to be on the podcast?
Mm-hmm.
And when Kevin Parkerson was speaking, what question was Jeff avoiding? And what was he
Oh, let's do
insistent?
this. Yeah, let's do that. Come on, Jeff. Let's do
So
that. We'll put that in the notes of the podcast.
yeah, and the beautiful thing is, the reason you can do that now is because this VCon is an IETF. It's becoming an IETF standard, meaning that I happen to know that when the LLMs were born, it read Wikipedia for breakfast and it reads the Internet Engineering Task Force standards for lunch. That's why, as a dev can open up a ChatGPT and say, "Show me the Python source code for a web server." You got it. Well, it intuitively also understands how to read these file formats, whether it's one VCon or 10 million of them chained together. And so what that means is that any company that invested $1 or millions of dollars in AI for, I don't know, business insights or to really get sentiment analysis, well, sorry, because now you and I, without investing a dime, in fact, while we're here on the podcast, the processing speed went up. We get the same benefit by simply using a standard. And that to me is a game changer in how businesses will communicate internally and externally, because we're no longer leaving anything on the cutting room floor. And I'll end my rant in one moment and say, if you ever work with chatbots these days, while they're cute and nice, even this agentic AI, if I'm saying it right, one thing that all has, they all have amnesia. Right? If you have a chatbot session right now and have a chatbot session 3 seconds from now or 5 days from now, it's going to forget that they spoke to you because
Mm-hmm.
there's no memory layer in there.
Yeah.
And what's really cool about the stuff I'm working in is that a VCon you could look at as being memory, so that the people who are engineering the next generation chatbots and next generation AI agents, they could use a VCon for the memory. And there's another protocol from the IETF called SCIT, which stands for Supply Chain Integrity, Transparency, and Trust, which will validate and certify that the data is correct, so that if we had this, we were talking about things, it will verify and validate the three of us spoke at this day at this time about this. And what I'm going to Bentonville to do is to bring these standards to the logistics industry, to the supply chain industry, because while everyone's doing their great job at what they're doing, I don't believe there are too many people at the IETF from Northwest Arkansas who are aware of these breakthroughs happening in the world of AI that will have a positive transformative effect on the future of supply chain.
Yeah. So right there, that's a great, help me understand. So as global supply chains, you plugged it really, really well. The global supply chains become so interconnected now. Where do you see the biggest opportunities, for telecom and AI to reshape the decision making that goes on in supply chains?
Well, first of all, we have an issue of trust and truth. That when people are if you're looking at you go from farm to table, you're going, or maybe I'm a manufacturer, I'm ordering parts overseas. People place orders and stuff, but sometimes there's slippage. Sometimes people will deny that a conversation took place. The nice thing about Skit, so there was in 2020, there was something called the SolarWinds hack. You may be familiar with it, where 14 government agencies of record in the US, plus about 100 companies, were taken down by some nefarious code.
Mm.
So under the mantra of never again, the U.S. government sanctioned the creation of Skit for supply chain integrity, transparency, and trust. And Microsoft took the lead, and a company called Data Trails has executives from Microsoft that have commercialized it, and those are the people coming to the conference. And when I look at supply chain, having the ability to have inherent trust, where we can validate, verify every transaction on a distributed ledger. See, IETF doesn't say blockchain; they say distributed ledger, but we know it's a blockchain, and we're not hiding from that. It's just that it's that truth of being able to validate, verify each conversation that took place from the time someone ordered something to the time something got delivered, and being able to track that, being able to look for insights, look for trends, and know that you're working with data. Now, in a call center environment, by the way, one of the other issues that's come up has been the ability for individuals to give consent, to manage consent, to remove consent. And so, in Europe, there's something called the GDPR. In the EU, there's GDPR where individuals have rights for consent. In the state of California and 5 other states in the U.S., it's the same thing. And most, like Delta Airlines, if you're calling from California, I promise you that Delta is not in compliance, because they answer the phone by saying, "Hi, this call is being answered for quality assurance purposes only." They don't give you a chance to opt out. In the future, and the technology exists right now, where because you ever called into a call center and you're a little irate and you don't want to be recorded, wouldn't it be nice to say delete? Well, you'll be able to, because you can, in fact,
Nice.
there are a lot of companies that are building AI responses based on the voice intonations of a conversation. And the whole idea in a supply chain, in a trust environment, is to enable the end user to opt in or opt out of sharing their voice or deleting their voice, sharing their consent, removing their consent, sometimes redacting the content, but confirming the conversation took place. And all that technology and a lot of that, and it's all free, by the way, in terms of there are open source projects that do this. There are some commercial companies out there that have these solutions. A company called Stralid has the VCon business. Them and others, they're pioneering VCons in certainly in the car in the car industry, in the automobile industry. Data Trails is doing Skit in big pharma, telecom, and many other areas. And these are positive. I call it positive and disruptive, because it adds functionality. So if you're doing global logistics, if you look at how some of those systems work today, sometimes it breaks down. And who's accountable if some data is corrupted? How do you, if you're doing the accounting and you're looking to figure out, well, what went wrong? Did someone manipulate this information? Well, the nice thing about distributed ledgers, as you know, is there's immutable trust, that you actually don't have to have trust, but you can track what changes were, because it's all measured, if you will. And so being able to bring an awareness level up, that there are solutions that are highly scalable, so that we can now kind of move forward in a trustless or trust environment, is magical. So I'm enamored by the tech. And I also, by the way, at my conferences, I love people who call bullshit on our speakers in a polite way. Because if we say something that either is not true accidentally, or not clear, I absolutely want us to be engaged and explain why we said what we said,
Yep.
and provide clarity. We're there to share information and to help people, and for us to learn too, because we come from different backgrounds. I've been writing code since I'm 9 years old, but I haven't written code for most people other than myself for many years because I'm not as efficient as someone who's well versed, but I do play with stuff. And I'm very much enamored by the effects of AI on business today and how things are changing. And so, what I've done is we have at the conference, I've my friend Glenn Richards, who is a co-author of the Pulver Order. He's coming. So in in the telecom world, he's famous because he is one who helped write the petition that became the Pulver Order, and we're doing an update for public policy on what's happening in telecom regulation. Probably will touch AI stuff there too. Matt Waller, who's a former dean, I guess, of the business school.
Yeah.
He's a guest speaking, so I'm going to do a fireside chat with Matt. I have my friend Thomas Howell, who's a co-author of the VCon standard. He's going to come and talk about how it actually works. Randy Krupston, who's the CEO of Data Trails, he's going to explain in more detail about how the Skit stuff works. I have a new friend who's from the AI Call Center Association. He's going to come and talk about AI and call centers. And then I have a few newly met VC friends. We're going to talk about investing in Northwest Arkansas and talk about some of the activity that's going on there. I am still looking for a few speakers to talk about logistics, particularly people from the local Northwest Arkansas area. Hopefully, I'm coming really to cross-pollinate worlds, if you will.
Yeah.
Like I may have a hidden agenda that I want friends of mine to consider moving to Northwest Arkansas.
Yeah.
Of all the
That's not
places I've
bad.
been to in many years, it's one of the most vibrant, growing, fun places with positive energy that I've discovered. And I kind of thinking maybe moving there myself or having a place there in the future. So I don't know when, but it feels like sometime in my future, I may very well be an expat in Northwest Arkansas. And
Come on down.
I mean, I ran into a few Long Islanders there, so you never know.
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, there's there's a few down here.
Absolutely. So Jeff,
KP, I think that we could. I mean, if we know a few people, especially former logistics or current logistics, and in the PE world as well. I mean, we could probably put some folks in touch with Jeff if you're looking for like a logistics speaker.
I'm looking for a few people that are not afraid to speak, and really to provide a platform for them to be heard by the people in the telecom side and the AI side that are coming that know me. And I'm really looking to help build business relationships. I mean, the Vine evolution. So Vine was grew into this like 5,000, 6,000 person trade show conference, which did really well. When I rebooted this event as Vine Evolution in 2023, my intention was that I realized after 15 years of going to other events, the most fun I ever have is in the hallways, having hallway conversations at other conferences.
Yep.
So I wanted to bring the
100%.
hallway conference into my conference. I wanted to I was thinking of calling it hallway talks, but I don't think anyone would understand what I meant. So I used the Vaughn brand, but I didn't want to, I couldn't really use Vaughn because it wasn't what it used to be. And I was binge watching Criminal Minds Evolution at the time. I took Evolution from Criminal Minds Evolution, connected it to Vine, and that's why I call Vine Evolution. And so it's meant to be. It's the intention is like a C-suite, a C-level conversations between people from multidisciplinary experiences, different backgrounds, but people with a vested interest in finding ways to work together, to talk to each other, and I've seen in the last 2 years business happen. So I've hosted this event before in New York and Boston. In Mountain View, California, I did a session in Kigali, Rwanda, of all places. That was mind blowing. But I'm coming to Bentonville with the intention of coming back next spring to Bentonville as well. And I'm looking for this to be our spring hub location.
Yeah,
and to grow from here. And so it's I'm putting my own mind space into seeing what we can do to provide conversations and contribute to the Bentonville Chamber of Commerce and helping them spread the positive word about what's happening in Northwest Arkansas and really engage the local community and learn, right? Because not everyone's an expert in everything, but if that's why we have, I encourage people to ask questions. I encourage people, not because if people are just going to talk and not be interactive, what kind of fun is that? So I'll just give you one other hint that when I open the conference, the first thing I'll do is I'll spend a few minutes just talking about what we've done. The next 15 minutes or longer will be each person in the room having the opportunity to say three things: who they are, where they're from, and something they're passionate about outside the work they do. Because
Hmm.
how often do you go to an event and never really meet anybody?
Yeah.
So my intention is to provide a place for people to get to know each other, even outside of work, because we're people. At the end of the day, we're all people. And my amateur radio that I'm still involved with today, that's a nice thing that I get to connect people with a people on the human level.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I've always been reminded of, that the technology we have, it's useless if it's not used by people. And why not provide everyone a chance to have their voice heard? So
Yeah.
I'm here to serve.
It sounds like a great event. You know, it really kind of focuses on the intersection of AI and telecom and supply chain, which I think is,
Yeah.
this is a great location for that. So we've talked about it a little bit, but so the name of the conference, the event, is the Spring 25 Von Evolution event, and it is currently scheduled for April 9th, correct?
That is all true. Yes.
And what time does it start? And where is the venue? And most importantly, how would our audience find out how to attend?
They could find out how to attend by going to vonevolution.com. It's taking place in the Museum of Native American History. It kicks off. I think registration opens up at 8:45 in the morning, and I'll be starting 9-ish, depending upon how many people come. We're having a dinner the evening before for some of our out of town guests and people from the local community who say they want to join. And again, it's so the idea is before the event even starts, we have a chance to cross pollinate and start building relationships. So, and in fact, I will provide a special code for anyone watching this podcast who would like to register as my guest or our guest. They'll be able to do so, and
That'd be awesome.
and that's that. And the event. So we start by going over the basics, and at the end of the day, I'm looking to help build community, because that was what I learned about this whole industry, is that it's made up by people, and that by building community, we connect. And that's why I ask people to introduce themselves at the beginning of the conference, so that when we take breaks and stuff, people could find things in common that they can connect with. And I've done that pretty well over the years. I've helped people who knew of each other meet each other and build business relationships from that. And some of the people that I knew from my bond conferences from 20 years ago are now living in Northwest Arkansas. And that was like the sign from above. I said, these people I know once are now living here.
Right. Yeah.
And they introduced me to some other people, which is how I ended up thinking about doing the event in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
I can't tell you, like, I'm so fired up right now because I'm thinking about what you're talking about, and like just like the Teams calls and the video calls that I have where we're bouncing ideas off of each other and stuff like that. So let me see if my simple mind can kind of encapsulate this. Like, I have a Teams call, and maybe I have them over a course of 5 years, and maybe I talk about the same thing once or twice every year, and then I want to go back and say, I have this idea. And then I'm like, have we ever talked about this? And then have that say, oh yeah, you've talked about this 475 times, but you've never done anything about it.
Yeah, we could do we could do that. I mean, did you ever hear? Do you remember in the '90s and early 2000s something called Lotus Notes?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I
Right,
just
and
told
Lotus.
someone this morning. Yeah, I
So,
when I started my career, I was in Lotus Notes. I
Oh
literally
yeah.
was
right,
telling
and
somebody that
then
this morning.
when Lotus got acquired by IBM, they changed it to Domino.
Yeah.
So that had a lot of opportunity. So we could actually do what Lotus Notes attempted to do. We could do that with the VCons and and company history, and create knowledge bases that are meaningful, so that on a private level, you could have all your personal email. You could have, if you will, Kevin squared GPT, where you could actually query stuff and follow up. And because as we get older, our memories don't always just scale, and sometimes we forget things. And
Yep.
that's why email is like a non-performing asset for all of us, I think, because we forget we know that we had a communication with a company or a person, but sometimes we forget their name or forget about what,
Mm-hmm.
or even like our phones. You ever notice that in your phones, you enter someone's name, maybe last name, maybe telephone number, but to this very day, these phones don't ask for context.
Yeah.
They don't ask, when did I actually enter the name? So if I go to a conference, I have 15,000 names in my phone directory. If I enter your name, I'll never find it again unless I
Yep.
take a picture of you and me and teach myself, gee, okay, it's Kevin Higgins.
Yeah.
We met
Yeah.
here. And because otherwise it's hard for me to navigate, because the way that we used to do stuff is the way that these products were built, but not how our minds work. And so being able to have total recall, I think you'll find that we'll be able to reconnect on old ideas. Companies which are like family businesses and they lost an engineer who was there for 14 years. Well, guess what? If you have the emails, you have the knowledge.
Yep.
You also have the opportunity to set up a system like for wisdom of the knowledge of the elders, and literally take information from the past and bring it to the future.
Yeah.
And you know, if anyone listening has lost a loved one in the last few years, I promise you that they probably have voicemails from them,
Mm-hmm.
because that's
Yep.
the last memory. Well, they're using this technology. It is possible that we'll be able to, without a lot of work, to create moments of memories of them and actually provide a way for their,
Wow.
if you will, to ask questions, or at least create a knowledge base. I mean, my dad passed away in '98, and you know, he's taught me and my sisters lots of lessons of life, and I refer to them. But you know, being able to, you know, while I
Yeah.
sometimes make my dad in my dreams or hear a voice, it'd be nice to actually have a 360 purview into stuff. And we're at that stage where AI, in a positive way, can do great things.
Yeah.
That's a great
And
segue where a question I cannot wait to ask you. I'm hoping I'm suspecting that you're a fan of sci-fi movies, I hope. So
I am.
is there a technology from a sci-fi movie that you wish existed today that doesn't? And do you think it
A
ever will?
technology, what I love to see that doesn't exist in its full form, really, that consumers can use, would be the type of hologram images that we've seen in the latest Star Wars film.
Yeah.
Because I do believe that when we can create true holograms, not for $1 million production, but like just, you know, just regularly, all of a sudden communication changes.
Wow. Yeah.
And we will be able to do that. Also, if you know, you may not know this, maybe you do, but James Earl Jones licensed his likeness and his voice to Disney
Mm-hmm.
prior to passing away, so that his family will forever have legacy of royalties every time he's used. And the thing is, what technology would you use to make sure that his voice and likeness is being used properly? It's Skit, because it actually can validate, verify how stuff is used. It does digital used for digital watermarking and stuff. And all of a
Wow.
sudden, and the thing is, to each of you, imagine that if we were to license your voice and connect that on the AI side, your great grandchildren can have bedtime stories read by you.
I'm
Yeah.
going to
People
do that. I'm doing that. Jeff, you're going to help
I,
me do that. I'm doing
I
that.
absolutely love that because
Yes.
I have, so my, you know, not to digress or anything, but my biological father passed away when I was 5 years old, and my grandfather had passed away the year before that. And then, so I would give anything to be able to hear
Right.
either one of their voices, you know, and the thought of like, you know, somebody else hearing my voice, you know, generations from now, just from a family history perspective, is absolutely amazing. I love the thought of that. And then just, you know, ideas and like, oh, your grandfather thought of this, and you know, even though he didn't do it, you know, in his mind he created the taco plate in 1952 or something like that, you know, because they were having a conversation.
You would say tacos.
Um,
Yeah. That's all.
yeah, I mean, it's tacos. Everything comes back to,
Right.
but I love that, using that type of data
Yes.
collection and data recollection, if you will.
Yeah.
I'm so jazzed, and I used the internet phone. I had a Packard Bell computer back in 1995.
Yeah.
And it had that on there, and I had a little microphone, and I'm like, I'm calling somebody in my little AT&T dial up, and I'm do 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 do. So yeah, I use all of that. I love it.
Well, so we have the framework exists now to create to license it so your family can actually get your voice. We could train the AI to have your voice, and with permission, be able to then use it in future generations to speak on your behalf and to read. And in fact, you could even capture knowledge and share it. And it's all that type of framework is happening now. The people who helped create the protocols that the internet runs on, whether it's HTTP for the web, SMTP for email, or SIP for voice, they're the ones doing the VCon work. They're the ones doing the SCIT stuff, and many other protocols, which many never come to light. I just happen to have taken a liking to this a year ago, and I've been on this mission because it's like I thought once in a lifetime was the opportunity to help change the way the world communicates, which I've helped, but I did it from a different perspective. And I do believe that these technologies we're talking about today are just as transformative, if not even bigger, because it's not just about communication. It's about life. It's about being. It's about businesses, how people, how all of us interconnect,
Yeah.
and how we manage the information that we have access to, how we trust, how we remember, and so much more. And I apologize for the length of this podcast. Perhaps you can chop this up into snippets.
No, this has been great. This is so interesting. It's ultra exciting. I can tell Higgins is very excited as well as I am.
Yeah.
We're looking forward
Fired
to the
up.
conference. We're both registered. We'll be there. We'll get this podcast out to our audience as soon as possible. We'll provide as much information on how to attend, where to go, how to get registered. We'll put that in the notes.
What is the proper name of your podcast?
Kev Talks Real World Global Logistics.
All right. I tell you what, I'm going to get if the person uses Kev Talks, if they use the promo code Kev Talks, and I'll put in Kev Talk just in case my New York accent is off.
There you go.
But Kev Talks, they can register and come as our guest.
That sounds great. I think
That'd
you'll
be
get.
awesome.
I think you'll get a really good a reception of that, and I think you'll get some really good attendees. So this is
I got a list.
And again, the offers out to the listeners and to your friends. If there are people that are passionate about supply chain and logistics, if you reach out and we still have room for a speaker, I will not say no.
All right. Well, you may have to get some more chairs. You're going to get a lot of people there. I have a feeling. So this has been great, Jeff. Really appreciate you coming on. So exciting topic. Amazing work that you've done thus far. We could go on and on and on. We'll likely have to have you back, as a follow-up and recap after the conference. Be more than happy to be able to do that. But this has been great. Thanks so much, Jeff.
Thank you for having me. I'm very grateful for both your times.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure to meet you, man. I appreciate you being on.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Kev Talks, Real World Global Logistics. If today's discussion inspired you, don't forget to follow, subscribe, rate, and share our podcast.
Remember, every great journey in logistics starts with a single step forward. Let's continue working together to transform the industry.
Shippers, let's talk strategy. You've locked in your ocean freight rates, secured your allocations, but what happens next? If you don't have a structured approach to managing your logistics service providers, you're leaving efficiency and money on the table. We see it all the time. Teams stretched thin, analysts wearing too many hats, and responsibilities split between procurement and operations. And navigating complex subcontractor networks? That only adds more confusion. That's why we created the workshop called Supplier Relationship Management at KP Global Logistics Consulting, LLC. This isn't about theory, it's about real, actionable insights to help you. 1. Manage logistics service provider relationships effectively. 2. Bridge the gap between procurement and operations. 3. Build supplier strategies that deliver real results. Timing is everything. Don't wait until your volumes start moving. Build your supplier relationship management program now and position yourself for success. Spots are limited to ensure a personalized experience. Reserve your place today, and let's make 2025 your most strategic year yet. Contact Kevin Parkerson for more information.